Hello and welcome back to Library of Ruina Ranked. In this video, we'll be ranking the cards from the Gaze Office, Kurokumo clan, and the Musicians of Bremen. We get some more solid cards here, so let's get started. Our first card is Observe. This is a 3-cost rolling 2-6 block, 2-4, 1-5 blunt, with the second blunt inflicting 1 paralysis next scene on hit, and on use, the user gains 3 strength next scene. This page is used on strength stacking builds occasionally, but for standard use it's not great because it has 1-cost rolls. It's not unplayable, but you put a lot more effort for a lesser output, so I think this is just a C. Opportunity Spotted is a 1-cost rolling 3-5 block, 1-2, 1-2 blunt, 1-2 slash, with all the offensive dice getting 1 power if the target has paralysis. The joke with this page is if you cast Observe and inflict a paralysis, then it rolls 3-5, 5-6, 5-6, 5-6, but it's quite a lot of setup cost to make the page passable. It does have the benefit of guaranteeing 3 emotion coins on a free hit and up to 7 on a clash, but that's really its only upside, and the plethora of downsides makes this a D. Binding Arms is a 3-cost rolling 5-15 blunt inflicting 1 paralysis next scene on hit, and on use, the page's cost is lowered by 1 up to 2 times. This page is fairly interesting. It reminds me of Streamline from Slay the Spire, but this page is pretty bad. At 2 light it becomes decent, and at 1 light it becomes pretty good, but it requires you to cast it twice before it becomes a page I'd be happy to play, and before it's pretty sad being a single offensive die page. I would have liked it more if it reduced the cost of all Binding Arms by 1, but alas it doesn't, and as such is another D. You're a Hindrance is next. This 1-cost rolls 1-5, 2-4 pierce, 1-7 evade, with the 1 inflicting 1 process next scene on hit. This page has the same roll range as Observe, with slightly worse dice placement. As far as 1-costs go, it's not terrible. The evade can sometimes act as a second page when clashing into 2-die pages or free hitting, but the pierce dice roll so low that you're probably gonna lose most clashes you throw it at. A page that can only free hit needs to have some impressive damage like Sunset Blade, and this doesn't have that, so it's just a C-. Zap is a 2-cost rolling 2-7, 1-7 block, 3-7 pierce, with both the blocks inflicting 1 paralysis next scene on clash win. The rolls on this page are passable, but as a defensive page it has to be pretty great for me to want it. The 2 paralysis is nice, and the offensive die roll isn't terrible, so I think this page is a C overall. Electric Shock is another 2-cost rolling 2-8 blunt, 2-7 pierce, both inflicting 1 paralysis next scene on hit. Compared to the standard 2-cost rolling 5 on average, this page trades half a power on 2 for a potent effect. I think that means it just stays at a C like the rest of the pages of its type. Structural Analysis is our next page. This is a 2-cost rolling 2-6, 3-5 pierce, 3-7 block, with the first pierce inflicting 1 process next scene on hit. Compared to your Hindrance, you get 1 power on 1 and 2 and half a power on 3 for an extra light. This is a page I wouldn't be embarrassed to clash with, but it's not the best page out there. Compared to Eject, you lose a clashing power on 1 and 2, but gain 1.5 power on the block. The damage is the same, but overall the clashing is worse where it matters, so I think it ends up being a bit worse, but it's still a C+. Unavoidable Gaze is a 1-cost rolling 1-7 evade, 1-6 pierce that inflicts 1 paralysis next scene on hit. This is a pretty sad page. 1-7 evade is decent, but not good enough to consistently win clashes, as is the 1-6 pierce. The free hitting also isn't great due to the single offensive die. Overall, the page feels like a significantly worse version of your Hindrance, which makes this a D. Inkover is a 4-cost rolling 1-6 slash, 2-8 block, 3-10 slash. The 1 gains a power for each card in hand, and the 3 inflicts 3 bleed next scene on hit. This page has pretty incredible clashing when you have a few pages in hand, and the damage is also quite good. You'll want to have at least 2 pages in hand when you cast this, but anything more is just gravy. The main issue with this page is that it has a heavy light and page requirement, so it's a bit unwieldy to use, but it's still a B-. Sharpened Blade is a 2-cost rolling 1-3, 1-3 slash, 4-5 block. The 2 inflicts 2 bleed next scene on hit, and on combat start, slash dice the user plays gain 2 power this scene. Basically rolling 3-5, 3-5, 4-5, this page has decent rolls when casting a single one, as well as boosting your other page assuming it's slash. But things get fairly silly when you cast 2 of them, since they'll both roll 5-7, 5-7, 4-5. It's not hard to make this page incredible, and it's still decent without any thought from the user, so it's another B- from me. Cumulus Wall is a 1-cost rolling 2-7, 2-4 block, 2-5 slash that inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit. As far as defensive pages go, this is one I like a decent amount. Low light investments and double block dice. That said, the 2 and 3 aren't incredible and it is still a defensive page, but I think it's good enough to be a C alongside Zap. Sky Clearing Cut isn't so lucky. This 2 cost rolls 1 to 5 blunt through to 9 slash. The blunt adds 2 power to the next die on clash lose, and the slash inflicts 2 bleed next scene on hit. When you account for the power gain, this page's average roll is 5.5, which is higher than the John C tier 2 cost pages, but considering you have to lose the first clash, this page is significantly worse than those. At the very least, the damage isn't awful and the bleed is on hit, but this is just a D. Scattering Slash is a 2 cost rolling 1 to 9 evade, 2 to 7 slash, 2 to 5 block, and on combat start the user gains 3 protection. The protection isn't really needed at this stage of the game, so it feels kind of bad having it there instead of more clashing power. The dice aren't awful, but single offensive die isn't great for us. I want to like this page more because the 1 to 9 evade on 1 is fairly strong, but I think it's just a C-. Silent Mist is another 2 cost that gives 3 protection. This one rolls 2 to 7 blunt, 2 to 7 slash, 2 to 3 block. The blunt inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on use, the user gains 3 protection next scene. Compared to Scattering Slash, you trade 1 power on the block for the evade being turned into a blunt that inflicts a bleed. The protection on next scene is about the same rate as this scene, so whatever. Overall, this page is stronger because double offensive dice, and compared to the classic average 5 roll 2 cost, I think it's better since you get a third die, even if it's weak, so this page is a C+. Rules of the Backstreets is a 0 cost rolling 2 to 8 slash that draws a page on hit. This is our second page draw card and, in my opinion, is far better than Flash of Sunup. The page draw being on hit instead of on use makes it a bit more risky, but clashing is actually possible with this page, and it being a 0 cost isn't nothing. This is a solid piece of page draw and is a B+. Cleanup is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 7 slash that inflicts 1 bleed next scene on hit, and on use it restores 2 light. This is premium light regen and is the best piece for Urban Plague. The clashing isn't awful and it's guaranteed light, so this is another B+. Dark Cloud is a 1 cost rolling 2 to 6 blunt, 2 to 5 slash, and on combat start, the user inflicts 1 bleed on a successful attack with a slash die. You have to build around this a decent amount, but when you do, it can inflict upwards of 7 or 8 bleed in a single scene. The joke is that it triggers Digging Shank, which can inflict even more bleed. Of course, the clashing is pretty bad, even for a 1 cost, so I don't think I can rate it higher than a C. Heavy Peaks is a 3 cost rolling 5 to 18, and on combat start, it inflicts 1 feeble to 2 random enemies. This page is worse than Binding Arms in my opinion. The roll and effect are slightly better, but you do get this page slightly later, and you don't get the cost reduction. It's just a D. Unforgettable Melody is a 2 cost rolling 3 to 5 slash, 2 to 3 block, 2 to 6 blunt, and on combat start, it gives 1 strength to 2 random allies. The rolls here are pretty bad, and while the strength is a decent reward, it's hard to justify using this page in most cases. One nice thing a player can do is stack a ton of these and make them all fairly threatening, but like with Observe, it seems like it's more effort than it's worth, and is just a C. Hard Rehearsal is our next page. This is a 3 cost rolling 1 to 5 evade, 3 to 8 blunt, 3 to 7 slash. It also restores 2 light on use. Being a pseudo 1 cost, this page is pretty strong. Of course, the initial investment makes it somewhat clunky, and the evade may as well not exist, but it's still a B- for the raw efficiency it has. Shrine to Music is a 2 cost rolling 2 to 4, 3 to 9 blunt, 1 to 2 block. It also inflicts 1 feeble to a random enemy on combat start. This page has the same roll average as Unforgettable Melody, but this one has more of its power stacked onto its 2, and the other 2 dice are pretty malnourished. The effect is also technically slightly worse, but double blunt is nice. All these factors make it a C alongside Unforgettable Melody, but I think it's slightly better. Upbeat Performance is a 1 cost rolling 3 to 7 blunt, 2 to 6 slash. Compared to John 2 cost, you lose 1 power and have no effects on 2 for 1 less light. I'm not entirely sold on that trade-off, as pages that clash better are usually better even if it's less light efficient. It's not a complete disaster to run, but it's just the C for me. Tendon Chords is a fairly divisive page. It's a 2 cost rolling 3 to 5 blunt, 3 to 5 slash. The blunt gives 1 strength to 2 random allies next scene on hit, and the slash recovers 3 HP for 2 random allies on hit. A lot of people were really singing this page's praises, but to me, this looks like a worse version of Unforgettable Melody. The joke is that you can spam these and make it really strong, but in that case, Unforgettable Melody has an extra block die to clash better, and if you were to spam these on one scene, then use bomb pages on the next scene, then you're using a page with terrible clashing. To me, I think that makes this page a D+. Our last page is the Red Notes. This one cost rolls 1 to 5, 1 to 4 blunt, and on combat start, it gives 1 strength to a random ally. This page's rolls are really poor, and the strength doesn't help it out too much. I used to really like this page, but over time I've soured on it as I realized that while giving strength is nice, you'd probably rather just use a page that clashes well. This is just an F, regrettably. In the next video, we'll be finishing the Urban Plague pages with the Wedge Office, Love Town, and the General Receptions. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching.